So like it's great to be chatting with you. So thank you for making time.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
This is a great film. I was blindsided by this. I actually did a blind watch. I didn't know anything about it. Just went in
That
and
makes two of us. I didn't know anything about it either.
I
I'm just
was
I'm just getting to know it myself.
I was
So
so impressed. Like congrats, it's great.
it means a lot that you'd watch it, and thanks for helping to, even have us on here and support. I mean, because not to sound cheesy, I know everybody knows this, but you make an indie film, and we had our own tentacles to it because it's based on a true story and all that. But it takes a village. You need like that support and to get it out there and hopefully tell cool stories and share. So thank you so much, Glenn. It means a lot.
No, pleasure. It's obviously based on a true story. Can you maybe just tell our audience what it's based on and why you felt compelled to turn it into a film?
Yeah, so it's called American Outlaws, and it is a fairly like American centric story. Although I think a lot of the themes are fairly universal, which I think makes it kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, I can remember it was about a decade ago. It was in the news cycles. There was these three siblings that went on this cross country crime spree, and it had kind of all the salacious bells and whistles of like the sister was like a former stripper now toting an AK-47, and they're like robbing banks and getting into shootouts with the cops and stuff. But at the end of the day, and I think this is what really compelled me and drew me in, was the story really felt like it was about family because there's a lot more. Once you started digging in and got past the kind of soundbitey aspect of it all, that it was, there was much more to the story, as per usual in that. But Glenn, as news cycles go, and the story was out there, and it was like all in the zeitgeist for like the 7, 8 days that it was occurring, and then it just kind of fizzles into the next thing. And so I remember kind of filing it away a bit, but then I had a colleague share with me this beautifully written by this great journo named Kathy Doby, who wrote this for the GQ magazine. This article based on this, and the way that she actually laid it out, she'd done a lot of research, and she got to know the real siblings. It came across very cinematic in the
Mm.
writing of it, the communication of it, and that really pulled me in. And next thing you know, like myself and my business partners on it, we were like, man, there's like a film here. And long story short, it then took me down the rabbit hole. Like, okay, I got the rights to the article, but then it was like, I need to go connect with the real siblings. I'm not giving too much away. They're each serving. I guess I'm giving a lot away in saying this, but serving 35 years apiece in three separate federal prisons. So next thing you know, I'm communicating with them and writing them and doing phone calls, and that's a whole effort in and of itself because of the situation. But I eventually went down and met with each of them individually in those federal prisons, and that was a whole experience itself. And it just goes to show, like, these things definitely take you these journeys in the filmmaking process can take you to some pretty weird and extraordinary places. But that just opened up the whole thing, and then we really got deep in the development of it all.
That's incredible. I've read that article, and you're right. It is really a blueprint, isn't it? Like it was really so well written and articulated and fleshed out. But I'm wondering, like, because to us in Australia and I guess other places in the world, this sort of story of the Doherty gang is very much etched in American law. Like we know we've seen these sort of stories before. What
Mm-hmm.
was your intention making this film? Like, what did you want audiences to take away from it?
I think like yeah, I think I've always you know had my own fondness for that kind of like go west, very Americana kind of story. It does harken to and forgive the highfalutin comparisons, but like the Bonnie and Clyde
Mm-hmm.
type of storytelling, even more recently the Hell or High Water type stuff, and it's really woven in the tapestry of that sort of American experience. I think for this one in particular was the two things. It was one that even in a different way that some of those movies might have been, but it was really rooted in these interpersonal relationships and specifically that this sibling bond that these characters had. And I think also not to politicize anything, Glenn, but currently with the state of affairs in the world from a geopolitical standpoint, but specifically in the United States, I mean, I think arguably, and most people would agree this, it's a very divided country. The
Mm-hmm.
United States is very divided, and you have like a huge swath of the population that feels very underrepresented, unrealized, not listened to. And again, not to politicize anything, but with that comes a frustration and a brewing frustration about like, look, I have a voice too, and I'm not being heard. And I think in a way, these kids were kind of byproducts of that,
Mm-hmm.
experience. And from that, not to say it justifies any of the actions or activity, of course it does not, but you start to understand like, wow, there's a systemic problem here. And through that systemic problem, we as a society need to be aware of that and should be aware of what the cause of a lot of these problems are. And then on top of it, I personally am always attracted to, and I think audiences have really come to almost embrace this as kind of the nomenclature, kind of the norm, but the fact of these sort of like morally ambiguous characters,
Hmm.
these people that are not, look, they may have done not the greatest things in the world, made bad choices, but they are flawed. They're tragically flawed, but maybe there's some sort of understanding, or maybe we can explore that, and what were the circumstances that caused them to make the decisions and these choices that they had, not to justify again the actions and choices, but to try to understand everything around that. And I think that became a really fascinating, aspect of the journey in and of itself.
100%. I feel like there's a lot of these films starting to bubble up to the surface that really ask the audience to look at their own morality, to look at their own humanity, and this is definitely one of them. But at the same time, it's a slice of entertainment, and it is very entertaining. And some similar movies, just to draw the audience in if they've never heard of it. You go right back to Badlands and Bonnie and Clyde, even
Absolutely.
Natural Born Killers and Devil's Rejects. As a creative, where did you draw your influences from, like to make this as much a piece of entertainment as it is an important story?
I think all of that. I mean, you never want to think that there's a glorification of any of these things, but there is something about that. Like I go back to that statement that sort of go west, young man, go west, young woman, like a freedom. They're a
Mm.
big one of the big themes about this is like they're kind of idealized but askew understanding, interpretation, and desire to find freedom and
Mm.
to understand what that is. So when you put yourself as an audience member in that place, it's like, what would it be like to just like, buck the system and get on the road and go, what they did is they took their road atlas and threw all the cell phones out the window and their credit cards out the window, and they went just like their granddaddy taught them to do, and they went through the deep, dirty south of it all and got off the beaten path, and they kind of discovered the undiscovered country through
Hmm.
their experience and all those things. There's almost a romanticism to it because it's like you're taking the bull by the horns and you're Jack Kerouacking it and you're just going for it. And I think that was really appealing. And then look, again, it's not about the violence of it, but there is something about like people taking control of their own destiny. And again,
Hmm.
it's askew. There's no justification for it. People, while they didn't get hurt, obviously could have. That's a horrible thing. But there's something that, again, it sparks something. It sparks and triggers something, I think, from our own perspective as Americans, as humans, as
Hmm.
moviegoers. And I think there's something very intriguing about that and going, man, what would it be like to just take control of my life? They went way extreme with that or attempted to,
Yeah.
but to just, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna be led by my own devices and go for it, and I think that to me I was really interested in exploring that space.
Yeah, it's complex too because they are lost within themselves as they travel as well. So I'm going to circle back to the logistics of the cross country element of the film, but I just want to touch upon the cast because the cast is excellent, all seasoned players, and I know from what I've read that you, I believe, knew India for a long time before this.
Oh,
Um,
actually, yeah, no, no, no. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
No, actually, I really had the pleasure of meeting her through the audition process. That
All
was the
right.
first time I met. I was aware of her work,
Okay.
and again, she was just extraordinary through the entire process. And I think the end result is her performance is just outstanding. But it was a new relationship. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So was this cast entirely through audition?
Yes, it was. Yeah, all the main key cast
Hmm.
were. I was really fortunate. One of my dear friends, who's I think one of the foremost casting directors in the industry, John Papsadera, who, again, he works in much bigger worlds. He does all of Taylor Sheridan stuff and all those series, and Chris Nolan and Sam Raimi and all that. But really has his finger on the pulse of young talent. We were looking for really that, that young talent, but that has that chops. I mean, it's a very actor driven, talent driven, character driven piece. So that's everything. I mean, that's the backdrop, the foredrop, the everything is through the lens of the actors' performances. So we knew we needed that. Wanted them to be there be a bond there, and that we could believe that they're siblings and
Hmm.
that they're able to develop that. And I think we felt that with that. And the rest was all through the audition process. The only person, and I want to mention her because I'm obsessed with her and she's amazing. I have my own personal connection to it. Is the actress who played the woman in the farmhouse, Tess Harper, who's an Oscar-nominated actress. She
Yes.
did the whole old country, No Country for Old Men, et cetera, et cetera. And she was in Tender Mercies, Robert Duvall,
Yep.
and so I knew Tess before. And
Okay.
again, she's one of those people that you she populates the world in the best way possible, and so there was that. But yeah, I was really really proud of the cast that came together for this because they're all like really wonderful actors. I mean, and you just what a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely, and they are. And I'm glad you brought up Tess because I've loved her for a long time. She's fantastic. But then also you just factor that with Treat Williams. You've got him. How did you get him on board?
Well, again, that came through the suggestion of a relationship to his agent, who was very supportive of the project. So we got very lucky there. And look, I mean, the sad news is that Treat was unfortunately passed away and was killed in a motorcycle accident just some months ago.
Mm.
So that was devastating. I actually had spoken to him. I'd stayed in really great contact with him. Spoken to him like a week or two before he passed away. That was shocking to us. I think the only sort of good of any of it is that we found this way to really like kind of celebrate and honor his legacy through the film coming out. We just had a wonderful experience at the Boston Film Festival. Sorry to sound like I'm blowing our own horn, but
You should
we
though.
won a number of awards there and best
Yeah.
film and etc. And they gave a lifetime achievement award posthumously, of course, but to treat for his performance and also his body of work. And his son was able to attend, and that was amazing. I had not met him. I heard a lot about him, never met him in person. I got to and spent the weekend with him, and that was just amazing. So it really, for a terribly tragic situation, it was, what a blessing to work with somebody like that who's a real legend,
Mm.
and he brought so much to the film and was so complimentary even going into it, and was just for me as a kind of a newer filmmaker, if you will. Although I look a little long in the tooth these days. All this gray, what is all this gray coming out of my beard these days? It was really outstanding to get his sort of stamp of approval to be excited to be in the project.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, yeah, I he's someone we've talked about on our podcast a lot over
Mhm.
the years. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, this was his final film.
Yeah, as we understand it, this is what we were told. I
Yeah,
think it is.
yeah.
I know it's one of his final films. I think it is. I think he did some other TV stuff that's kind of more in that streamer space. So that's how we understand it, what we've been told. But I'm not, to be honest, I'm not 100% sure.
That makes
I
it
think
all the more
another thing.
profound though, because
Yeah,
there is a moment in there where he ponders death in the film, and like
yeah.
that sent chills through my spine watching that. Like in one of his final moments too, like on screen.
Yeah, well, his character, and he plays this federal agent that's chasing the kids.
Yeah.
And he was really an amalgamation of a number of different characters, to be frank.
Hmm.
But he represented that kind of more cynical voice about his perspective on the youth of today and, good and bad and law enforcement and society as a whole. And so he had a lot of very like sort of existential fatalist kind of ponderings through the character that he portrayed, and it really did resonate when you go back and look at it now and realize, here's a really, grounded character, and to know what happened to Treat and stuff, and he's no longer with us is,
Mm.
it's very shocking and impactful when you watch it again with that in mind. Yeah.
Completely just adds a whole nother texture to it. I'm going to circle back now to the technical stuff. So much of the film is taking place inside a moving car that is on open roads in traffic at times. How do you direct that?
Uh, the great question. I've had the fortune, and even the new movie that I'm starting working on has a lot of what we call road work in it.
Hmm.
And my film before this film had a lot of, it was a road trip movie, and this was, for all intents and purposes, a road trip movie. I feel like I have a lot of that in my films. And I don't know if that's because maybe in some latent way, and I should talk to my therapist about this. I always feel like I'm wandering myself or something, looking for something, I can't find it. But all joking aside, yeah, listen, it is technically, especially look, let's just be frank again. It's an indie film. It's a a lower budget film. We're
Hmm.
not and working with all the bells and whistles of a Marvel film and all this. So we have to find clever ways. I had a wonderful crew that just had a plan, and we executed that plan. But no, we did, and I think it added to the realism in the sense we got I call them the kids, but the three
Hmm.
siblings, the actors who played the siblings out on the open road, and we got a chance to just go and kind of see America. I mean, we shot in Louisiana. We shot in Louisiana, and we shot a little bit in Texas and also in California. But we really got to go through that kind of deep, dirty south of it all and take that in and absorb it. And so from a technical standpoint, yeah, I mean, look, we you have to worry about the environment and making sure the cameras are stabilized, et cetera. And we were very fortunate to work with some really great and talented people that helped with all that, and that we could get it done.
Filming across all of that distance, though, does that is there a lot of red tape involved with all different county lines and different permits and things like that?
Yeah, do you want me to tell you the inside baseball of it all, like the inside scoop of it all? I mean,
Are you going to
we were
tell me you just did it all illegally and just threw
Yeah, we
caution to the
did.
wind?
I mean, there was a little bit of that, and I think that's the exciting part of what draws us as
Yeah,
filmmakers and to be pirates and miscreants and
yeah,
circus barkers and all that kind of stuff. So look, I don't want to say I'm proud of that, but sure, well, of course you do that, and that's kind of the exciting part because
yeah.
we're like, it goes back to like, oh, we're guerrilla filmmakers. Here we go. But this is now going to take the air of what I just said. So we were really fortunate because we shot that particular stuff in Shreveport, Louisiana, and there's a wonderful military base or Army Reserve base that's for training their transportation aspects, and it's also contained. You can what we call kind of own the whole area. So we worked with them, and we got to just run for miles and not have to worry about closing down roads and all these kind of things because it's very self-contained and also private in that way. So that helped a lot with that, especially again, I keep harping on this, but I feel like I shouldn't be saying this, but for our budget level, we couldn't shut down, city blocks
Hmm.
and do all these things, but we were able to get in there and make it look like we were doing a lot for very little.
I like that you say that stuff because it just gives people a reason to appreciate the film so much more because it does not look like your typical cheap movie. It's a really
Mm.
good looking film. And you mentioned Taylor Sheridan before. This is cut from the same cloth of a lot of what he does.
And I love that stuff. I mean, look, I mean, look, I don't even have a right to compare to that kind of stuff in Taylor's work. But I mean, I love that stuff. I love that Southern Gothic feel. I'm from the South myself. I'm such a Southerner in Deep South that I married an Australian because that's as South as you can get for us. So
Yeah.
I'm teasing. But no, but so to me, like a lot of the stories that I tell are very much immersed in that and based in that. And I think Taylor Sheridan in particular has, he creates a world of that culture and that setting. And look, I think not purposely necessarily, but I think my stuff is kind of akin to that and cut from that cloth too. And I'm very inspired by his work. So yeah, I agree with that 1,000%.
Totally. Now before I do wrap this up, I ask a lot of people this question, people that I talk to, what type of movies do you gravitate towards in your downtime when you're not making movies? Like, I don't like calling them guilty pleasures because who should feel guilty about watching a movie, but where do you go?
I don't want to give the canned answer, but I fucking love movies. I really do. I was just talking to a friend about this. I realized, like, okay, my not to say too much, but my background was not the best upbringing as a child. But movies like raised me, even more than TV. I wasn't a big TV watcher, but
Mm.
I was one of those geeky guys, and I still am. I'm a complete geek. I just love cinema. I crave it. I love movies. I love the experience of going to the movie theater, sitting there with other people that you don't know, but we're having this collective experience, like all those things we all know and probably what we all love. But so anything, I mean, like anything that's good or interesting or partially good, but you can appreciate something or what was going on. So I love all that stuff. But I mean, I love the greats. I mean, I love that 70s filmmaking style. And you go back to the Coppolas and the early
Hmm.
Scorseses and even Spielberg and all that kind of stuff is just like it's what it's what inspired me as a kid. It's like I was in awe. It's like so all of that stuff is I mean it's everything. And in a way, I hope and I don't want to end on a downer note, but I hope we don't lose that. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It's like there's still so many great stories. This is what I love about if I'm allowed to talk about my humble perspective on Australian filmmaking and filmmakers is I still feel like there's a real sensibility for that and why I
Hmm.
love Aussie filmmakers. I know it's a very blanketed statement, but I feel like it does still have those kind of roots to, even the filmmaking styles of, the 70s in Australia and even how that was occurring at the same time in the States. And I feel like Australian filmmakers, have this really distinct voice that still comes through, that's unique,
Hmm.
and they've been able to maintain. Obviously, there's amazing, huge filmmakers that have come from Australia, but like everything in between, even from an indie sensibility, if you will, or that kind of smaller space, there's still, and that's exciting to me. It's like there's so many people that have such great stories to tell, and that's personally what I love. That's why I want to try to do, and we all connect like that. So again, sorry for the kind of ambiguous answer. Like I'm not getting
No,
too
no, no.
specific. I just love it all. It's just incredible. It's
not
true art
not
for me.
only are you talking my language, but you're talking the language of our listeners. So I'm sure that in and of itself will convince people to go and track your film down and watch it. And I hope they do. But thank you so much for taking time out to chat.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome chatting. I could probably go on another 2 hours if I'm being honest.
Oh man, anytime. I would love to talk to you. You've been incredible. You're super dope to talk to too. So thank you, and thank you for your time. It means a lot. Thank
And let's
you.
get you back on when your next film comes out.
I can't wait. I can't listen. That one is very special. So, and we have an incredible cast. So yeah, I look forward to. I'd love to stay in touch. So thank you.
Let's do it.
When people ask me, what are you and your brothers like? Through all the darkness and distance and fuss. We would do anything for each other. We are the Doherty gang. Clock's ticking, 3 minutes. Everybody get down on the ground! Come on, Max! Move! Time!
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
There's a massive FBI manhunt for 3 siblings on the run from the law.
Our whole lives, we've been the little guy. Stepped on, stepped over. I'm suggesting we finally take control. I'm in.
I want this halted before it escalates.
They're kids.
They're criminals.
They'll get tired running. Make a mistake.
It's just a matter of time.
Come on, let's go! Try and keep this snitch!
It's amazing what people are capable of when they're pushed far enough.
Things can't go back to the way they were before.
You gotta start thinking about the future.
Daddy ain't gonna lay it down, I promise.
All we gotta do is get across that border, and we're home free.
Scared. What do we do? We should stop, right? This is gonna end bad.
Now, I don't know what's waiting for us at the end of all this, but I do know we'll be there together.
Family first, brother.
Hands in the air!
Always.
The more the kids we were. Our lives. It wasn't supposed to turn out like this.
Freedom. There's still a chance.
I love you guys.